this concept of the spectrum only kind of came into focus in the 80s and the 90s. And it includes a lot of people with a lot of different presentations of challenges and very, very different needs. And so it becomes really, really politicized because there's issues of who gets to speak for people with autism,
Right.
who gets the resources that the government can provide for people with autism. And one really specific thing that a change that's we've seen since we started our work is that it was kind of considered polite and respectful 20 years ago to describe somebody who's on the spectrum as a person with autism. It was called people first language. It's not. It's as though it was the opposite of saying here's a disabled person. No, it's a person with a disability. The disability doesn't define the person. But there's been a change in that position, and it's much argued over that no, the person is inseparable from their autism. They are autistic. You wouldn't, the argument is made, you wouldn't say a person with black. You would say a black person. And so that itself has become an argument, which we kind of bridge in the film by using both terms and also using the term on the spectrum. So to your question of labeling is important, it's really, really critical in this conversation. And it is not, in my view, it's not settled. People who take up, people, as in most things polarized, there are people who will say, yes, it is settled. It's settled my way.
Right.
But I take the position that it's not really settled.
Caren, what would you add to that about language and how you talk about it, or how Mickey himself talks about it?
Well, to add to what John said first, until recently, until a handful of years ago, there was a division. There was autism, and then there was Asperger's. There was
Right.
sort of like a line in the sand. And I think that was a clarity that really helped people on the spectrum, and especially on the more profound end of the spectrum, because it said that we're different. We have the same thing, but it's not exactly the same. And that makes you look at it differently, and that there are different needs and requirements and supports for different types of people. When Mickey was, for an example, when Mickey was first diagnosed, you would have thought of him as someone who was on the very high end of the autism spectrum, because he had language and because he was semi-independent. But the spectrum that now includes everybody sort of puts him in the middle, because he is someone who's going to need support for the rest of his life.
Right.
So he's it's almost like the categories move. It doesn't change him at all, but it does, I think, make it cloudy for the world to understand it.